So this is my follow-up video for my first two videos. I'm going to state the obvious. Crash has not happened yet. I thought it would be by the first week of December, but I'm not concerned because it's still happening. It's very hard to predict the actual dates, but all my information stays the same, and I have no doubt before Christmas it will happen. Because I see people in tears this holiday season, and I always knew this holiday season would be bad for people. I just thought it would, because of the way things pan out, then the dominoes fall, that it would be a little earlier than it is, but there are dominoes falling. So I made some notes for once. So the Fed cut last week. Basically, it's an Operation Twist. They're easing on treasuries and tightening on mortgage-backed securities. So it's easier for the Fed to make liquidity, but it's going to be harder to get, ultimately for the common people like you and me, it's going to be harder for buying properties, getting loans of that nature. That does put extra stress on that market, which doesn't need any extra stress as it is. What the Fed has also been talking about is banking deregulation. So basically the Fed could allow the banks to do the easing for them and take it out of their hands. The Fed is a very political organization. It is not doing what it needs to do for the people. Right now, it's a pissing contest between Jerome Powell and Donald Trump. Also, when I say stuff, this is going to be to preface what I say next. Don't read into what I don't say, just listen to what I do say. And Trump has a lot of good points about Jerome Powell. He's very compromised, and the guy is so arrogant that it's coupling over to incompetence. Now, that doesn't make Trump right, and what he's saying is the solution, but I'm not going to get into that. I'm just talking about Jerome Powell. And Trump will eventually get rid of him, one way or the other, and then he'll put his people in, and then you're going to get this super big cut that I was talking about back in, I think I did the video August 21st. So that's still coming, and that won't help us either. That will drive inflation much, much higher than it already is. And along with the stagnant economy, we're going to have stagflation. It's just going to be very nasty. The problem also with what the Fed is doing is it affects the Japanese yen carry trade. So that is something I haven't talked about, and I probably should have, but that has been developing into a much larger story too, that of course you don't hear on the news. But basically what that is both the United States and Japan issue or print money and issue bonds. In the United States, what they do is they use that money they printed to buy the bonds. And because there's like an interest rate that's a little bit better than inflation, they actually make money off of it. Don't you wish you and I could do that? Japan is a much different story, and they've had problems for, I can't remember when the crash was. It was like 98 or something like that, a big crash. And they've been struggling ever since. So what they do is they don't buy their bonds because their bonds have been at basically 0%. So they would lose money. So they have been buying the United States bonds because they get a better interest rate. So then they make money just like our federal bank makes money with the bonds. The problem is, and this is something I've been saying for years, I don't know if I said it in my videos or not, the bond market will eventually take away the printing press. And that's because the bonds just shoot up. Everywhere in the world right now, the bond market is going up. The Fed just cut rates. Our bonds are going up. 10-year yield going up. Japan going up. Germany going up. Italy, France, UK, all those countries, no matter what they're doing, their bond rates are going up because people don't want to buy them. They want a return on their money. And when there's, such a lack of responsibility when it comes to government budgeting. You know, these politicians, they just write blank checks for everything, and of course, it's coming back in their pockets. You know, it's a whole corruption thing. I won't get into that, but it's these bonds are starting to skyrocket and they're getting out of control. Now in Japan, get back to Japan, the problem is with the bonds is they actually have a high interest rate now, and it's higher than ours. So what that means is they're going to be selling our treasuries, which we need buyers for our treasuries to print money, and they're going to put those on the market. Next week, I believe it's the December 18th and 19th, they are saying that they are going to raise rates. That's what every indication is. So it makes it even more attractive for them to buy their own bonds, which makes it less attractive to keep our bonds. And they're one of the largest holders in the world. I think they're right behind us. They're either second or third. I don't know, but it's a lot. So you have a perfect storm. The Fed cut to try to help here. Japan's raising. That's another thing that'll cause a lot of problems. And that's why I have no doubt this market's going down. It's crashing plane. You know, yeah, I'm a couple weeks late. So what? You know, time is as I've talked in earlier videos, it's very fluid and it's very hard to predict. And I will probably never get the timing exactly right. I never have over the years. But this is all coming to a head. There isn't one good economic indicator out there. I'll equate it to, you know, when I was a kid, we still had Looney Tunes on, and I remember there was like, you know, Bugs Bunny would be in front of a dam and he'd stick his finger in, then the next finger, and then he's sticking up his toes, and there, as every time he plugs one hole, another one, you know, comes open until it eventually busts. And that's exactly what's happening here. There's no way, there's no safe outlet, and they need a crash at this point. You know, the banks have trillions in unrealized losses at the United States banks, and that, I'm sure that's true for overseas. I kind of specialize in the United States, but it's no different over there. And on top of the derivatives, it's, you know, and they say, oh, it's okay, and it's not. And I've talked about shadow banking before, and you know, they're like, oh, our loans are good. Well, there's been 3, I think, auto loan shadow banks that have gone out or have declared bankruptcy, and their loans are always good until they're not. And that's when the rubber hits the road, and then they find out that all these loans are way underwater and worthless. And this whole like storm, you know, it's like the perfect storm. All these are just converging on one place. So it's going to be very, very messy, and it's going to be ugly. You know, maybe it is the yen carry trade that is the match that lights the fire. I always thought it was shadow banking, but shadow banking is a mess too. I've never really cared to try to figure out what was the exact catalyst, because like I said before, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be extremely bad. Going into some of the stuff I've talked about in the past, I talked about silver. So in my August 21st video, I said buy silver. I looked it up. The price at close was $38.15. The price of silver close on Friday, December 14th, with the last time the market's being open, was $61.87. That's a return of $23.72 in that amount of time. What is that? 60%, we'll say, ish. Silver had a soft default at the end of November, and maybe that's kind of some of the things I saw because I'm so into the hard asset market. But basically what happened is, in the middle of the night while we were asleep, silver trades around the world, but the main player is the COMEX in the United States, and that's all public knowledge. Then you have the LBMA, which is in England, which I mentioned in the last video is having a lot of problems. And then you have China and Shanghai trying to become the new de facto leader in the price setting mechanism. And what happened was This is, I believe, the Monday or two, maybe the Sunday night of Thanksgiving week, is they closed the market for 10 hours. They just stopped trading. And their excuse was that in Chicago, one of the servers overheated. It is really a piss poor excuse. These markets have servers upon servers upon servers spread throughout the world. There's redundancy upon redundancy upon redundancy. And you're trying to tell me that just one server, backup server in Chicago, overheated and crashed and it stopped the whole market? No, I'm smelling bullshit on that one, and everybody else who follows it too. It was because they needed to not default and lose total control of the silver price. They're not happy the silver price is up this much. I just saw JP Morgan got rid of their shorts. They're going long. The other banks are underwater. They have these naked short positions they can't get out of, and a crash would allow them to exit these positions in a much more favorable manner, because a crash it goes across the board, even in things like silver, gold, Bitcoin. I had concerns about Bitcoin in my videos. It's been down. It got down to 84. I think it's around 90 now, but it went down relatively quick. And there's the danger I'm talking about with Bitcoin, because that will get hammered. I'm sorry, people who like crypto. Crypto is the future. You were absolutely right. But the future is a bumpy road, and it's first generation. And you look at something like Tether, and I'm not picking favorites, but Tether now owns more gold than most central banks in the world, because they want to back their cryptocurrency, make it a stable coin, which, for those who don't know, stable coin, they want it to be more stable. It doesn't have these crazy price fluctuations. They want it to be legit. And that's where crypto needs to go. It needs to go to actually having a real backing, and not just built on faith, kind of like the currency. And at the end of the day, as much as people like to think, yeah, it's decentralized, but we control it now. We control the exchange systems, United States. So other countries are not going to be too keen on using it. They will use it as a stopgap still. It's still got life in it. And I'm not saying Bitcoin will go away, but next one will be like Bitcoin Pro. Could very well happen. But it's going to have issues going forward. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, was like, get into crypto. Why do you think they want you to do that? Anytime the government tells you to do something, ask yourself if it works out in your favor. They want you to do that because they can track it. And I've seen some wild people on, like X and Reddit that say, well, try to find my cold wallet. That is like me driving around my cell phone, and when I get home, before I walk in the door, I turn off my cell phone, throw it in a Faraday bag, and say, hey, you can't track me. It's the same type of thing. And they can track digital. And maybe they don't know you right now, but at some point, you're going to go through an exchange. And especially when they go, we make our own stablecoin currency, it's going to be ledger to ledger, and they're going to know everything you have. So be careful with that. There's a reason they don't talk about gold and silver, and our government is hoovering it up left and right. Silver is now a critical mineral for the United States government. Our militaries use it. I heard something like it's 500 ounces for every missile we shoot off. Business is good in the war industry. That's a lot of silver. And when the government says it's a critical mineral, they no longer have to report it to you and tell you what they're doing. They will be buying into the miners. I had some luck with a tungsten miner this year. And real quick, I did get out of the market at the end of October. I did try a couple bank shorts. I didn't try that whole list. They didn't quite go my way, and I got out On Friday, the 14th, I did go short. I used inverse ETFs, which I will be sitting until the market crashes. And then I will be going back in long gold and silver miners, and then Almonte, the tungsten miner, because the government's going to invest in those heavily. Again, not financial advice. This is just some guy that claims he knows some shit somehow on the internet or on YouTube. You do with what you please with that. But also, they're trying to stop this silver price increase. The COMEX raised margin requirements by 10% on silver, which means basically that's the cost of borrowing it. So it's another 10% interest rate, more or less, to trade silver if you don't own it. That's to slow the price increase. But there are entities standing for delivery no matter what. And usually they sell out for cash, but not this time. And it's a big player. Who the rumor is China. I would bet it's China or something, one of their partners in BRICS that is doing just that. So just know that gold and silver will go down during the crash like everything else, but it's here to stay. Next summer, so I'm going to give a preview of what's happening next. This coming summer in 2026, the United States will reprice gold asset. So I don't remember if I spoke about this. I know it's going to be in the summer, give or take, but sometime June and August, I'm pretty certain. And basically, we haven't, the gold that we own on our books, which Fort Knox hasn't been audited. That was one of the big things about Trump coming in. We're going to audit day one. Didn't happen. Wonder why? Because it's not there. But they have been bringing it back in semi-secretly. They've been trying to do it secretly, but it's hard for them to keep it secret when it's such a large amount. It is under national security. They're bringing it back in the country, and shoring up, because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And there's a whole lack of trust in the system now, going through everything. Gold, silver, even just dollars, parking in the repo overnight from banks. There's a lack of trust in that. I need to get back to that one. But the United States will reprice gold. It's the easiest thing they can do to get out of the financial problems they are in. So right now, gold is priced in their books at like $42 an ounce. That was from like 1971 when we went off the gold standard. So we have all this debt. And let's use example. Let's say I'm $1 million in debt and I own a car that's worth $50,000 and nobody wants to give me more money because obviously I'm in the hole about $950,000. Well, let's just say I could wave a wand and magically my car is now worth $2 million. Guess what? That $1 million that I owe doesn't look so bad because I'm up plus $1 million now. Obviously a very facetious analogy, but that is exactly what the government's going to do. And they're going to go higher than the current price. They're not just going to go to 4,200-ish, wherever it's now. Let's say it's 5,000, 6,000 in the summer. It may even be higher than that, to be honest with you. I think it will be at that point. But they'll go to something like 15 to 20,000 because then they'll say, hey, look, which is a price bottom. That means gold won't go below that price. And obviously, if you're owning gold and precious metals, they're probably going to make you the bad guy too. Expect the media campaign to be very negative against people that hold gold and silver. But they're going to put that price bottom in, and then that's the easiest thing they can do to shore up their books. And then it's like, oh, look how many assets we have. We're not in so much debt. We've hit, I think, 38 trillion now, and they reprice gold. I don't know how much they have in their books, but maybe that turns into only 8 trillion in debt. And as I said in the previous videos, they want to get rid of the having the reserve currency in the world because it stifles them. They want manufacturing to come back to the United States, and it's a national security issue that it does. Trump is actually right about that, but he does. No one is honest about how painful that will be, and all those people that got degrees in college and masters, well, they'll be wanting more. The future is physical labor. It isn't this because of AI. AI is replacing a lot of those businesses, or a lot of those, not businesses, jobs, and some businesses too. Just because, AI doesn't complain about feeling sick or need to go on vacation or go to sleep. It is the future. And we'll get back to AI in a second. So that's what they're trying to do is make it so it's economically feasible for us to be manufacturing. And obviously we're not going to have production lines like we used to. They'll both mostly be automated, but they want it back in our shores for that reason. China has a huge amount of manufacturing capability in their own country, which that's why going to war with them is a bad idea in the long term, because they can manufacture much quicker than we can. Yes, we have a bigger military, but if we try to go to war with them, it would be in their backyard where they have the home field advantage, and it would be a war of attrition too. Just so you know, none of the war games go very well for us. If to win, it pretty much decimates our military, and China, Russia can manufacture munitions in their countries, which is what we're seeing with Russia, especially in the Ukraine war. They're able to keep producing, whereas our stockpiles have gotten very low. And we're just giving them old shit. That may have been true the first couple months, but that is no longer true. So it's. I wish, I'm not a very pro-war guy. I wish the war would end, but there's players that don't want it to end, especially Europe, and they don't mind a war because it also lowers your population, less people to take care of. So, plus war makes a lot of money for people, not only in the economy but for the politicians themselves. So, that's. We have more war in the future. We have also more viruses, outbreaks, bacteria outbreaks, you name it. All that shit's going to happen. More and more. I don't have a lot of good news. Speaking about AI. So, AI is the future, and they want it to be the future so bad. They're licking their chops. And AI is just a machine, so let's call it neutral. But that being said, it will not be used for good purposes. Most of it will be used. If it's not used for efficiency in business, which we'll say that's a neutral or positive, although it's hard to say positive because a lot of people lose their jobs, which is why they keep talking about universal basic income, which most likely will become a reality at some point. But it will be used for control. It'd be used to make sure that we're in line along with the digital currency. The digital currency will come first. AI has two issues. The first is the return on investment. I've seen a stat where it says it will cost $5 trillion before we get any return on AI. And most companies, even that have used AI so far, have not really seen a return on investment. I think the number will be much higher. They always give the rosiest results. So anytime I see a number or a timeline, I just assume it's going to be worse. The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, is a great example. Look at through, in my lifetime, the last 40 years of anything that they've said, they're always wrong about how much it ends up costing and the timeline, because they're not neutral. So that's the first big issue with AI, is the spending amounts required to get it all in line. But they'll find money for it, but it will be painful. They need a lot of data centers, a lot of infrastructure. Oracle just got smacked. And during the crash, there's a lot of hot money in AI because everybody's like, it's the future, it's the future. They're right. But first, you have the problem with return on investment because a lot of these loans they've given are not worth anything anymore. They've, millions and billions of dollars are just being spent with nothing in return. The next big problem is the power component of this equation. You need a lot of power for this. In Texas, I think it was something like the requirements for all the data centers will require like 235 million kilowatts or something. And I could be wrong about the exact wattage, but the numbers are mostly right. But right now in Texas, we only use 85. You're not going to run data centers on solar wind power. I have dealt with solar power for 20 years. It's nice when it works, about 99% of the time, but you also have a huge investment in solar panels and batteries pollute the earth. And not only that, all the minerals and rare earth metals they need for batteries, you get them from other countries that are mining them, and they don't care about the environment. Some use slave labor. I mean, you have all these other problems, but the power needed for AI is just something we don't have in our infrastructure yet. So that will have to be remedied, and it'll probably be remedied at the cost of us, especially hurting the lower class, lower middle, upper classes can, usually they don't care about inflation because, they're buying a $300 steak anyways for dinner every night, that type of thing. But it will for us. That is the true problems with AI. And during the crash, if you're still holding on to these things, watch out because you're going to get smacked. I convinced one of my friends to drop NVIDIA. And he's like, well, it went up a little bit. I'm like, so what? Don't worry about it. It'll be back. They did some Enron-esque things on their last report when it came to accounts receivable. So, everything is priced for absolute perfection in AI, and it is not going to be achieved. You got to think longer, and you got to be more careful. But yes, AI is the future. But for us normal peasants, common folk, watch out. So this is going to be my last video. I don't want to do these videos. I never wanted to do these videos. I don't want to be on social media. I have zero interest. They told me, oh, you get it. You have information. The information's out there somewhere. I mean, maybe not in one stop shop, kind of like how I'm doing, but I'm sure there is. There's a lot of smart people out there. I don't want to do these fucking videos. It's as simple as that. I don't like social media. It's where good ideas go to die and people are just nasty. So I am finishing my obligation on these videos. I don't expect there to be a follow-up. Just next year, it's going to be rough. A lot of unemployment. Property values will be going way down. Just for me personally, I did short the market on Friday. I've also been selling a lot of hard assets, gold and silver, and you'll probably be like, well, you said it's the future. Yes, I did, but I'm going be liquid in the market, and I'm going bargain shopping on gold and silver miners because those are going to be the next generation printing press. That is what I'm doing. You do you. I wish everybody well, but I will not be doing any more of these videos. I do not want to. They told me, oh, they're going to go viral. I hope they don't, and if they do, I just want to be left alone. That's it. I have nothing else to say. Just everybody take care of themselves. It's going to be rough. And if you're able to, me personally, I highly recommend gold, silver, especially if you're able to, after the market crash. Silver is still affordable even at $62 an ounce. You think that's high. It's nothing yet. Nothing yet, because that paper market, the years of manipulation and exploitation of the paper market and the derivatives and everything else is going to unwind, and it's going to be a nasty unwind. But if you're holding silver, yeah, gold, I get it, $4,200 an ounce, it's great. It's still got a lot of up room. If you can afford it, get it. But I know how it is for most people. Silver, you can at least probably do something if you don't lose your job. Family first, and just trust that the politicians won't do anything to help us. They'll just keep making it worse. That's all they can do. They don't know what they're doing. It's all a show. It's all, I mean, let's look at abortion. Never settled. Kind of goes more towards pro-choice, and it goes more to pro-life. And all the while, the politicians are playing you against each other. So, and I'm not saying it's not a serious issue. You have your opinion. That's great. I'm not trying to change that. But you ever notice how they never solve the problem? They never, you got wackos on both sides that go to the extremes. So there's never anywhere close to a middle ground. And yes, that's a hard issue to have a middle ground on. I get it. But the whole time, donate to my campaign, because they're trying to take your right to choose. They're trying to take away the right to life. Donate to my campaign, but don't look at what I'm doing as a politician. Don't look how I'm robbing people left and right. Going on expensive trips, living the high life. How I had no money coming into Congress, and now I'm a multimillionaire in a short amount of time, making $180,000 a year. And that's what they do with us, and we fall for it. So I don't have a lot of hope. I know eventually I actually end up leaving the country. If I do that, that's not a good sign of what's to come. So just take care of each other. I wish you all well. Much love to everybody, and hang in there. There's always a sunnier day, but we got a storm coming, and it's going to be tough. So we'll have to rely on each other, because nobody's coming to save us. Y'all take care.